It's funny to see console manufacturers and their heads and execs dance around the topic of PC gaming. You see, at first, it used to be this big thing that consoles had this exclusivity thing that was attractive about them. But lately, it seems like the live service mania, having taken almost over a huge percentage of gaming, is now forcing everybody to take a very different look as to where they want to deploy their software, especially software that have invested tons and tons of money on single player games, and even the ones that were, basically working in cahoots with some of these publishers to ensure that these games stay as exclusives on their individual platforms. Now, I saw this article that was on my Twitter page. I think it's by Games Radar. I was also hearing about another article from someone who said there was another comment from PlayStation on Gaming Bolt. I haven't been able to find that one, but this one literally showed up on my feed, and it says Sony says there is no major risk of players choosing PC gaming over PS5, even if the PS5 Pro is $700 and the base console got a price hike in some regions. Written by Anna Koselki, published December 11th, 2024. So apparently, this was an article that was actually out there a while ago and never really made any rounds, because this particular concern of Sony, or non-concern, was actually stated in some of their shareholder details. We're going to look through it real quick. According to Sony, there is no risk of PlayStation players making the move from the console to PC, something the company stands by despite PlayStation 5's recently adjusted price in Japan and a controversy surrounding how expensive the newer PS5 Pro is. Speaking during the shareholders Q&A held early this last month, and this shareholder Q&A was, I think, in November, Sony confirmed as much after questions regarding PS5 exclusives and their role in preventing players from swapping from console to PC came to light. They said this, or whoever was addressing the shareholder said this, and I quote, "We are in the latter half of the console cycle for PS5, and the number of PlayStation 5 titles has been increasing," explains Sony. The quote again continues, We've also confirmed internally that the transition of users from PS4 to 5 is trending well." Okay, so if they're confident in that, then it means that they are fine and comfortable with continuing to bring their games to the PC platform as they choose to, because they now have a mix of it. Live service day one, single player day one, co-op day one, remake day one. They've done it all. I don't know if anybody was paying attention. Now, people may try to sit here and try to tell me or moderate what kinds of games they are and give me all these explanations, but they've done it all in terms of moving their games to the PC platform. And this is what a lot of people are probably asking for. But it also goes down to another conversation, and I've said this before. Many of you may or may not know, when I used to make a lot of these videos pretty much dunking on all of the trash narratives that, people try to bring around the internet without having any backing or any data to actually, put forward so that we could actually see, is that from clapping, the music starts and then dancing continues. It's an old saying that they say where I'm from in Africa. They say from clap, then take the enter down. So the music is playing, everyone's clapping and enjoying. Before you know, you clap, and then before you know, you're joining in the dance routine. Look at this thing here that I found as well. Somebody posted this in the exact same thread and said something about Xbox. And I said, what did Xbox do this time? Apparently, Derek Strickland from Tweaktown wrote this article years ago, about 8 years ago. He said the title was "Not Every Xbox One Game is Coming to PC," says Phil Spencer. Ladies and gentlemen, we now know that this is absolutely not true anymore. All Xbox games from then are now on PC. Now, at the time, I'm sure there was some concession in that regard. But March 7, 2016 was, I think, when Quantum Break was about to make its way to the PC platform day one. I read a little bit of it, but let's go ahead and look at it. It says, now that Microsoft is bringing its Xbox games lineup to PC, console owners are worried that Xbox Ones are now obsolete. As an Xbox One owner myself, I can definitely say I feel left behind, but Xbox boss Phil Spencer says we shouldn't be worried. According to Xbox's division head Phil Spencer, Microsoft isn't going to bring every Xbox One game over to Windows 10 PCs. The console will still have its own unique platform exclusives. Although the Xbox One is considered a Windows device, it is still at the forefront of Microsoft's gaming plans. So Phil says this, and I quote, "The argument people give me is that, hey, I'm just going to sell my Xbox One and play all these games on my PC. I get the emotion around the argument. Frankly, from a financial standpoint, the most cost-effective way to play these games is to own an Xbox One," Spencer said in an interview with IGN. We're committed to bringing our biggest franchises to both Xbox and Windows, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every game could end up on both platforms. There could be many differences in the play space and how games play. So pretty much there was a lot of dancing around even on Xbox's part when they were, in a sense, looking to make their transition to the PC platform in that regard. Another really interesting thing too, and I'm bringing all this stuff up because, both fandoms or whoever may come out and have like some reservation would have something to say. But you guys remember just a few weeks ago, I was talking very, very heavily about a little bit of a kerfuffle that happened on the internet when PlayStation announced that it was going to be bringing Horizon Zero Dawn to PC. In that kerfuffle, there was a former Guerrilla producer who came out and told, the gamers who were going crazy, like, y'all need to calm down because this ain't really a big deal. Like, you've already enjoyed the game. You've already played the game. It's okay if other people go ahead and play the game. And in that conversation, they were dragging that guy, and some PlayStation players were saying things along the lines of, this is going to diminish the brand. Do you guys remember? I pulled it up and here it is. We're going to go back and we can take a look at it real quick. And you guys can see for yourselves that even at the time, people like this user, Joel Santos, said this to that producer and said, a former Guerrilla developer producer doesn't understand the success built by his former company was done on the basis of outstanding exclusives, and that scrapping that exclusivity diminishes the brand value. So PlayStation players also believe that their brand was diminishing the value. And if you continue to read through the thread from about 4 or 5 years ago, you'll notice that there were a lot of people that said, well, it seems like my PlayStation is no longer useful to me as well. So it may be that fans sometimes overreact about these things and are not paying attention from a business perspective, that the industry was already changing at the time. Keep in mind, as far back as 2017, we already had games like Star Wars Battlefront 2. Even with all of the, drama that went along with it, a lot of people were still willing to play that game and still willing to spend money on microtransactions and everything. EA already knew that this was the affinity of a lot of gamers and this was the stuff that they wanted. PlayStation already knew, but no one could envision that accessibility and technology was going to continue to grow, where these games were going to be more and more accessible, where you didn't need to sit there and say, well, you can play this your favorite Call of Duty game and these exclusives. Now, accessibility was there for developers to be able to make whatever kinds of games they wanted and to be able to also go ahead and, make them match or compete against even the big exclusives that were shiny being delivered from, PlayStation and Xbox themselves. So it's just a very interesting thing to see how PlayStation pretty much does not think that the PC platform affects their, their user base. So it's one of two things. It's either that they're denying it or they're actually saying, nah, we actually got them in a hold. We got them in a chokehold. They ain't going anywhere. So they're basically saying, our audience, we don't feel that they will need to move anywhere. We don't feel like they will need to go ahead and bother with moving to, another different platform. We got them right where we want them. And if they feel like they do, then, hey, welcome to your $1,000 console, because this article is saying they're saying this despite the price hike of their consoles. So I'll read this article and then we'll finish up this video. The company continues stating that players swap from PS4 to 5 resulted in more digital transactions. In addition, we see users tending to purchase more software when they switch to PS5s, which we see as a positive. Even though PS4 users are shifting to PS5, however, Sony says that it doesn't see a similar move from PS5 to PC, nor does it feel as though any such move will potentially happen in the near future. Okay, in terms of losing users to PC, responds the company, we've neither confirmed that any such trend is underway. So they're calling the bluff of these people who were whining back then and saying, nah, they're just crying. They're not going to move to PC. I think that's me saying it in the most tongue-in-cheek way. Nor do we see it as a major risk so far. It would be a valid concern, though, as reported by Automaton in August. The PS5 suffered a loss of sales. Ooh, I just went crazy. The PS5 suffered a loss of sales. There it is. Due to Sony hiking the price of the standard console by 13,000 yen, about $85. Whereas Xbox figures went up, a situation that implies a swap occurred from PlayStation to Xbox. While it's not exactly the same, the high price of the recently released PS5 Pro could raise concerns about a possible move on behalf of Sony fans. On behalf of fans of Sony's console to PC. It seems that these are not concerns Sony is currently considering or worried about. However, unsurprisingly, after all, the scalpers were selling the limited edition for about $5,000 and a good few devoted players were willing to pay the unreasonable price. So apparently they're saying that, there are some PlayStation fans that are suckers that are going to go ahead and do whatever PlayStation wants them to do. And PlayStation seems to be comfortable with that. They don't feel like that move or that shift is going to occur. Okay. We'll see how the market plays out. One thing about it is we are not going to sit here and worry about that. The market is just going to dictate what it's going to do. And PlayStation, understanding that the market is going to do what the market is going to do, also understand that there are some that are brand loyalists, and then there are some that are just not interested in going to a gaming PC. They don't know what the platform is like. They're basically gaming where they know. However, more things are changing. And, we'll see how the market moves. I'm not going to sit here and predict anything because, again, I really don't know what's going to be the big market changer. But I do know that the live service games, they've already taken the cake from every other kind of game out there. And there are just a certain number of them that continue to do so. Simple as that. You can't run away from that particular fact. And they've exerted such a pressure on the market that a lot of things are just so weird going forward henceforth. But it is what it is. Talk to me in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.